Good afternoon. This is Bryce, and you're listening to GenRX Radio on 90.7 WCLH, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Hazleton. Keep it locked.
My name is Jamie, and with us we have Dr. Thomas Franco, an associate professor of pharmacy practice here at Wilkes University Nesbitt School of Pharmacy.
Happy to be here as always.
We will always have a licensed pharmacy faculty member with us on the show to ensure accurate information goes out to you. We are here to bring you weekly topics centered around the opioid crisis, proper medication use, and disposal, in not just my community, your community, or our listeners' community, but it is all of our community. Be sure to tune in every Wednesday afternoon from 1 to 1:30 right here on 90.7 WCLH for new topics and discussions. And before we get started, we have a quick press release. The Victims Resource Center to hold Start by Believing rally in recognition of Sexual Assault Awareness Month and National Crime Victims' Rights Week. It will be held on Thursday, April 28th, beginning at 5 p.m. on the steps of Luzerne County Courthouse. The rally is being held during Sexual Assault Awareness Month and National Crime Victims' Rights Week, and will honor local victims of crime and their families. The theme for this year's rally is Start by Believing, which helps to create a community that believes and supports survivors.
So this week is our last of a 3-part series on alcohol use disorder. Last week we gave a little overview and some key insights about alcohol use disorder. This week we want to dive a little bit into the treatments that are out there for people suffering from alcohol use disorder. But first, Dr. Franco, can you give us a quick refresher of last week?
Remember that alcohol use disorder is a disease. There are physical changes to the brain of people who have not just alcohol use disorder, but honestly, any type of addiction. And unfortunately, alcohol use disorder gets overlooked because alcohol is such a vital part of our culture, our history, our traditions across the world. So it's how can we better communicate with people who do have an alcohol issue while taking an introspective look at ourselves to make sure that we are also not engaging in, we'll call it, excessive alcohol use.
Yeah, and so this week we're going to focus a lot on treatment, and we're going to start at step 1, and that is your decision to quit. So this is definitely a huge step, but you just have to make the leap, and I suggest writing it down or telling your best friend, your mom or dog, and say, I'm going to do it and I'm going for it, and have them hold you accountable for it. And step 2 is really just kind of getting through withdrawal. While undergoing alcohol use disorder, your brains undergo some changes, which include downregulation of the inhibitory neurotransmitter called GABA, upregulation of the excitatory neurotransmitter called glutamic acid, and desensitization of GABA receptors to alcohol and benzodiazepines. So all that alphabet soup kind of means that your brain develops this perfect storm for seizures when you stop drinking. And I know seizures are scary, but it is something to be aware of when you make that decision to quit drinking. And they can definitely be managed. In a healthcare setting, they'll give you some sedatives to manage the seizures and get you over the hump.
Yeah, well, I think the thing with alcohol use, unlike drugs, so unlike heroin or fentanyl, is alcohol withdrawal. You can die from alcohol withdrawal, and it's because of the seizures. And when the pandemic started and everything shut down, us in the, we call it harm reduction community, were begging that the state open up liquor stores and open up opportunities for people to get alcohol, because it's not because we're like, we just want people to drink. It's because we knew that if you couldn't get it, people were going to die. So it was a good thing that got opened. But yeah, as you said, Bryce, the first thing that you always have to do whenever you have an addiction, and you're going looking at the 12 steps, so you talk steps. Step 1, in the case of alcohol, would be phrased as alcohol has taken control of my life and I am powerless over it. And then step 2 is turning yourself over to like a higher power. It's turning yourself over to some spiritualness, not necessarily a spiritual being. And then withdrawal, that's when people think of going to like detox. That's the withdrawal part. So detox is a fancy way of saying getting you through the withdrawal process in a safe manner. So if you do intend to stop drinking, going to see a medical professional, a physician, to help mitigate the risk of withdrawal is imperative for your safety.
Yeah, thank you for those tips. And I know we touched about it before on other episodes, but could you talk a little bit about the spiritual being, but like the spiritual sense of like turning yourself over to a higher power? Because I know some people, they get turned away from AA because they think it's just for people who are really religious, and we really want to make sure that people know it's open to everybody.
Yeah. First off, AA is a wonderful program. It's been in existence for a very long time. And is it for everybody? No. The path to recovery is unique to each person. We know that the medications have amazing data. The path is unique, though. So, as part of AA, a lot of it does prescribe to the 12 steps, and the 12 steps involves turning yourself over to a higher power. But yes, there are people who feel that that's a god, or that is some other religious deity, we'll call it. And I know people who are atheistic or agnostic, and they're like, "Yeah, it's not for me." And the notion is not a religiousness; it's spirituality, which they're two very different. It's one of those all rectangles are squares, but not all squares are rectangle type deals. That's what this is. So religiousness, bluntly put, is fear of the bad place. That is. I mean, no disrespect, but that is bluntly how you will hear religiousness explained. Versus spirituality, which is knowing that there are things in life beyond your control, and without which you could not make it. So for some people, that's a religious deity. For other people, it's family, nature, friends. So it's realizing that I can't do it by myself. I need the help of something else, and that something is really up to you to define.
Yeah, definitely. And on the topic of help, we're going to talk about a little bit about counseling in AA. And I think this is really imperative for someone going through alcohol use disorder, because when we're considering counseling, we need to take the person's ideals into consideration, because they need to be in a setting where they feel comfortable. And Counseling 101 might be that, but AA is another great option if you'd rather be in a group setting. And AA, like you said, Dr. Franco, is a great program for people because it provides people with the support that they need. And with alcohol use disorder, you definitely need some support to get through it. And addiction and withdrawal just really sucks. So it helps to have people who know what it's like. People in AA will be there to celebrate your successes and pick you up when you fall. And anyone who's been to AA knows that the most important thing is that you just keep showing up to the meetings.
Yeah, AA's, the biggest word I would give AA is community. It's a group of people who have a similar understanding of something that people outside of AA probably don't. Most people will not know what an alcohol use disorder is or what it feels like, but in AA, it's family. It's that's why everybody goes, and it's all hugs all the time when you go. So people do find it to be very supportive, and I know folks who are in recovery for decades and still go to meetings. They say that's part of their recovery and their path. And when you guys go to Utah, which is I can't wait, it's coming up. That's gonna be you're gonna see firsthand what AA meetings look like and how people treat AA meetings.
So another important thing to consider is that the person that has alcohol use disorder is not the only one affected by it. The friends and family of that person are also affected. And we just talked about AA, but for those people that are friends and family of the person who has alcohol use disorder, there's a support group called Al-Anon. The groups meet similarly to AA, where they can share their stories and experiences with each other. Bryce and I also found a new program called Al-Teen, which is a support group focused more for teenagers who are affected by alcohol. And both of these groups are great resources for those affected by alcohol use disorder.
You hit the nail on the head. It's a disease that does not just get the person. The symptom, every disease has symptoms, right? So like if you have high blood pressure, you can get headaches. If you have diabetes, you get like tingling in your feet. If you have asthma, you get wheezing. Well, if you have substance use disorder, a side effect or a symptom of that is that you hurt those that you love. I feel like I'm that Red Skull in the to get the Soul Stone, you must lose that which you love. Yeah. That's kind of what happens here. It does. And it goes after everything in your circle first. So part of treatment is having that strong support system and having somebody go to a meeting, an Al-Anon or Alateen, which is, like you said, that's Al-Anon for teenagers. They prescribe to the same 12-step program. And you'll hear people in Al-Anon say, in case of alcohol has taken control of my life and I'm powerless over it. And it's because of the addiction that your loved one has. So part of Al-Anon is learning how to what we call detach with love, how to separate yourself from that which you love, but you still love them as a person, and recognize that it's the disease that talks, not the person. It's the disease that lets you down, not the person. And a lot of people who go to Al-Anon find it incredibly beneficial. And best of all, it's free. There is no copay to go to Al-Anon.
Yeah, that's great. And I think we talked about it before, but for like any addiction, isn't part of the recovery process to kind of make amends for those relationships that you might have severed or like put tension on?
Oh yeah, that's part of the 12 steps. And honestly, a lot of people in recovery say that's the hardest part of the 12 steps is I have to do what's called a moral inventory. You have to basically take a deep look at yourself and be like, oh man, I messed up. I mean, we all know how we feel when we screw up. And imagine that like on a grand level, and then having to go back and say you're sorry. And the 12 steps is not a one-way street. It's not like you get through step 12 and it's like, woo. You know,
Right.
you got to repeat these steps over and over and over. You live by it. It's a way of life at the end of the day for folks in recovery.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will discuss some more treatment options for those with alcohol use disorder. Thank you for listening to Generation RX Radio. Keep it locked on 90.7 WCLH until we return.
Coins burn the silhouette and hate the
Welcome back. You are listening to 90.7 WCLH, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Hazleton. For those of you just joining us, you are listening to Generation RX Radio. My name is Jamie, and with us, Dr. Franco, Associate Professor of Pharmacy Practice, and my co-chair, Bryce.
We are here to bring you weekly topics centered around the opioid crisis, in not just my community or your community, but our community. Be sure to tune in every Wednesday afternoon from 1 to 1:30 p.m. for a new show. Before we move on, let's do a quick recap of our first half of the show.
So we talked about alcohol use disorder in terms of treatment, mainly focusing in on 12-step, AA, Al-Anon, what all that means. So I think the hardest thing for a lot of people to do, obviously, is step one. But once people do commit to step one, it oftentimes becomes quite liberating to know that you finally have it out there. It's like any condition. People always say, at least I'm getting peace of mind because I know what the condition is I'm trying to fight, or one of those like you have to know your enemy type things. Getting it out in the open, a lot of people do feel liberated, and then they're able to try to have a better go at their treatment.
Yep, that's a great point. So we're going to dive into a new treatment that I recently learned about in my neuroscience class that I'm really excited about. It's called alpha-theta training. People who suffer from alcohol use disorder have been shown to produce less alpha and theta brainwaves than people who do not suffer from this disease. Alpha waves are produced by your brain when you are in a calm and awake state. Theta waves are produced by your brain when you are in a meditative state, and they're also linked to creativity. So alpha-theta training uses biofeedback to increase these brainwaves in people who suffer from alcohol use disorder. And biofeedback is a method used to train your brain. And with this, people can actually train their brain to produce these brainwaves. This treatment is completed over many, upwards of 40, 30-minute sessions, but upon completion of the sessions has shown promising results of about 70% success rate for outpatient treatment. It is definitely a time-intensive treatment with many appointments, but it does not require medication and has a very high success rate.
Wow, Jamie, that's just really, really mind-blowing. But have you ever tried this neurofeedback training before?
So actually, I have participated in a type of neurofeedback training. So I participated in neurofeedback sessions at our neurotraining center here at Wilkes University. However, my session was focused on relaxing and calming my mind for stress. During my session, I used my phone and an app on my phone to connect to a headband that they put on me. And so what happens is the headband in your app makes sounds of a rainstorm. So if I was producing alpha waves, which are those calm, relaxing waves, the rainstorm was like a nice light storm. And if you were doing a really good job, some birds would chirp. And then as my brain began to wander off and worry about all the homework I had, the storm would get loud and there was thunder and lightning. It was a really cool experience, and I felt so calm after. And I would definitely recommend trying it if you would like to work on reducing your stress. While the alcohol use disorder treatment is a little bit different, the idea and how the neurofeedback works is the same. It is a really exciting treatment that I hope they continue to explore.
Yeah, well, I know with finals coming up, I think my brain would look a lot more like a thunderstorm than a gentle rain lately, but that might have to be something I have to try out in the future.
Yeah, it was really cool. I just wanted to mention, too, that this is definitely a treatment that has barriers to access, though, because it is can be very expensive, especially for those who don't have insurance. And also the time lost at work for a lot of people can be a big deal. But I think it's still a treatment that should be explored for people who can and want to do it.
One, you need that for finals. Like try just being an adult. I just want that because it's a Wednesday. That'd be great. I'm like, I gotta go pay my mortgage yet today. Something like that sounds. It sounds really cool. You're right though. Money is going to be a big issue, and time. Some of these folks might work hourly jobs, and they might not be able to take off 40 some sessions to go and do this. So it can be a burden. I think the thing with treatment is that there needs to be options. Right now, the majority of people who need help don't get it. And the biggest reason is they don't know where to go to get it. It's not like, oh, you're sick and you need to go to a doctor. Okay, there's plenty of places you can go. You need treatment for an alcohol issue. There might be maybe one place in your local area, especially if you live in like the more rural parts of the state. You might be driving hours to get help. So finding out where, but folks have options. And we know, like I said, medication has great data behind it, and there are various medications you could use. But having people have the ability to do all these other things and work amongst themselves to say, okay, what works for me, what works for my lifestyle, and to maintain my recovery, that's ultimately the best. The medications, yes, and the support, yes, we know that those two things are usually critical, but everything else that's out there, I agree, let's make it more accessible to people so that they can get the help they need.
Yeah, those are some great points. And one last thing we wanted to recommend is when you're going through withdrawal, it might be helpful to work with a dietitian or another healthcare provider to figure out a diet to replenish nutrients for you. When you're suffering from alcohol use disorder, we see protein, carb, fat, vitamin B1, and vitamin C deficiencies. And it is definitely hard to consider all those things every day. I know, just because I'm like really into weightlifting, I'll try and track my calories and my macros and my micros, and it's just really tough to like think about those things like all day, every day. So I think having a dietitian or a healthcare provider on board will help you like achieve those goals and help you feel better about like getting through treatment. And one thing you could try is meal prepping or plan out your meals. So then you have a good diet and you can better manage your withdrawal symptoms and make you feel better overall. And I know the gut is sometimes referred to as our second brain because it uses many of the same neurotransmitters that affect our brain. And so having a good diet, I think, is good advice for everyone.
Oh, yeah. I think that no matter what, a good diet is something we should all do. It's something we all struggle with. I know, like, I housed a bag of potato chips, like, not the little fun bag, like the Middlesworth bag with the zip on the top of it.
Oh, the zip.
Yeah. I
Didn't need to reseal.
No, I didn't. It was just like start off and there we go. But yeah, so people with alcohol in particular, but you do see with a lot of other addictions, won't maintain proper diet because in their brain, the drug or alcohol, which is a drug, becomes more important than food. It becomes equated to survival. So that's oftentimes you do see a lot of people who have alcohol issues quite malnourished. So supplementing them with vitamins, primarily B vitamins, really helps prevent some serious health complications long term. And then, yeah, a lot of people who are in recovery do get into meal prep and all that because they find the dopamine surge from physical activity and weightlifting coupled with their service to be what they feel is necessary for their own path.
Yeah, definitely. And with that, we're going to wrap it up for this week. And this is our last show for the semester and for the year. So I'd like to thank everyone for listening to us this year. And Dr. Franco, can you give us some take-home points for this session and for this year?
Well, for this session, we make it known that alcohol use disorder is real. It does happen. We should not be afraid to bring it up, even though it's more culturally acceptable to drink than it is to obviously use drugs. But it can be treated, and there are treatment options out there of various types, and you just need to go out and do them, go out and find them, and have the courage to bring somebody with you, have that support system. In terms of the whole year, it's recognizing that addiction's a disease. It's recognizing that opioid medications are okay in some situations, but not okay in others. And if we have leftover medications, let's dispose of them in a safe way. I think that everything that has gone on because of COVID and lockdowns will give us, unfortunately, plenty to talk about next year when you guys get back, especially starting off with discussions on your trip to Utah. That's going to be great.
Yeah, we're really excited. And I think another important thing that we brought up in a lot of shows was don't be afraid to ask your pharmacist questions. They are a great resource, and they can help you not only with medication questions, but resources if you need And even like Bryce said, they could give you some diet tips or point you in a direction to get some help. So like Bryce said, this is our last show for the semester. So thank you for listening to Generation RX Radio. We will be back in the fall with more pharmacy-related content. But until then, keep it locked right here on 90.7 WCLH.